Good morning, students. Today I'm going to teach you the second unit, Lost Spring. Now, what is Lost Spring? It talks about those unfortunate children who have never experienced the happiness of their childhood. It means the spring of their life is no more. They never know, they never understand the meaning of what spring is. What they have seen is nothing but the child labor. They are exploited to such an extent they never feel what happy life is. So basically, this chapter talks about such unfortunate, downtrodden people in India that they can't feel the happy time of their life, that is spring, and that spring is lost to them. So they have lost the spring, they have lost the happy time of their life. The chapter was written by Anis Jung. Let's go through some of the information about the author. Anis Jung, she was an Indian woman, writer. She was born in Rourkela in Odisha. Her upbringing was in Hyderabad. She belonged to a very affluent and influential family. She developed very uncanny interest in the plight of downtrodden women and children. All family members were very well versed in literature and excelled in writing. She studied in Osmania University before going to US to do her masters in sociology. She was a humanist, compassionate and caring woman. She received her education in Hyderabad and in the United States of America. This chapter specially, this chapter is an excerpt from her book titled Lost Spring, Stories of Stolen Childhood. So here in this unit, we are going to see about two unfortunate children. First one is Sahib Alam. First one is Sahib. Means Sahib Alam, it means that he's the Lord of the universe, but he's doing a job of a rag picker. His job is to pick up rags, pick up rubbish, is scrounging in the garbage. And the second child the second story is about Mukesh. He is working in the glass industry. He is welding pieces of glass. He is soldering the pieces of bangle. So that is the story is all about. And in India, it is said that it is, we cannot say that whether it is right or wrong, but more than 2 crore people, means 2 crore child labor is involved. Okay, directly or indirectly. They are working as labor at tea stall. Even they are working as waiter at highway dhabas. You must have seen this thing, that we all know that what their condition is. They are going through a lot of deplorable condition, but we as human being really can't do anything. So Anis Jung has, she has that courage that she has talked about these two things, the two children. As she has talked about the child labor, exploitation of the downtrodden people, and the politics. The people in India, the people in power, they give them ration card that enable them to vote, but they are not given their rights of living the life in the best manner. Let's go through what this chapter is all about. Look, in the very first paragraph, the author, and she is also the narrator of the chapter, Anis Jung, she meets a child, Sahib Alam, every morning when he is picking the rags around her locality. So this first paragraph is a conversation between Anis Jung and this unfortunate child, Sahib Alam. Let's go through. I asked Sahib, why do you do this? Whom I encounter every morning scrounging for gold in the garbage dumps of my neighborhood. Look, the author and the narrator ask him that why you are doing this work of picking the rags. And whenever I encounter him, he is always found scrounging for gold, he's searching for gold. Look here, gold is, we are not talking about the precious metal. Here, gold means it is wrapped with wonder. This child, when he's scrounging something in the dump of that rubbish, garbage, if he finds something, sometimes he finds 5 rupees note, 10 rupees note, sometimes silver coin, so he feels very happy. So he keeps on scrounging, he keeps on searching for something. So that is why the author says that I always find him scrounging for gold in the garbage dump of my neighborhood. Sahib left his home long ago. It was a very long time that as he hailed from Bangladesh. But a heavy storm ravaged their agriculture and everything. So they had to leave that place and they came here in India as a refugee and settled in Simapuri, that is at the periphery of Delhi. Set amidst the green field of Dhaka, his home is not even a distant memory. He didn't know that where he belonged to. There were many storms that swept away, that uprooted their field and homes. And his mother tells him that is why they left. So this was the reason that they didn't have anything that would provide them food. So they had to leave that place and they came to India. Looking for gold in the big cities where he now lives. So they are living in Simapuri, that is at the periphery of Delhi. They live here for their own survival. At least they get food. I have nothing else to do, he mutters. He grumbles, I don't have any work to do. I'm not educated. I don't go to school. So I say, the author, narrator, tells him, it is better you go to school. I say very glibly. Glibly means very easily. Without caring, I said, okay, you go to school. Looking away, I knew that, realizing immediately how hollow the advice must sound. I knew that my advice was very empty. I was not able to do anything for them. There is no school in my neighborhood. When they build one, I will go. His answer was very prompt. He said, I don't have school around my neighborhood. How would I go there? When they build a school, I will go. Then author says, if I start a school, will you come? Anis Jung says, if I start a school, will you come? I asked half jokingly. She was not that serious. He says, yes, smiling broadly. He says, definitely I would come and attend the school. A few days later, I see him running up to me. After some days, that boy, Sahib Alam, goes to the narrator and asks him, is your school ready? Is your school ready? It takes longer to build a school, I say. Very dejectedly she says, it takes longer to build a school. She felt very embarrassed, she felt confused, she felt very awkward at having made a promise that was not meant. She knew that the promise she gave had no meaning. She gave the promise, but it would not be fulfilled. But promises like mine abound in every corner of his bleak world. Promises that she gave, really, it abound. It is found in plenty, but it is really very cheerless because the world he is living is joyless. He will never be able to come out of that perpetual poverty. Perpetual means something that goes on. It is unending. After months of knowing him, I asked him his name, Sahib Alam. He announces. He does not know what it means. The child was illiterate, he was uneducated, he didn't know what is the meaning of Sahib Alam. It is really very ironic. Ironically, we can say that if he would come to know that the meaning of his name is that he is the Lord of the universe, and he is doing the work of a rag picking. He does not know what it means. If he knew its meaning, Lord of the universe, he would have a hard time believing it. So really, he would not believe that. Although he was named, his name is Sahib Alam, but his work is really very pathetic. He does not have even enough food to eat, in spite of being Sahib Alam. Unaware of what his name represents, he doesn't know what his name means. He roams, he wanders the street with his friends, an army of barefoot boys. Barefoot boys, they always remain shoeless. They are without shoes and who appear like the morning birds and disappear at noon. It means in the morning they start their work and by the noon they disappear. By the noon, whatever they have collected as rags in that plastic bag, they sell it, okay, to the scrapper, and they earn their livelihood for their survival. Over the month, I have come to recognize each of them. The author says that she has been trying to learn them, trying to study them, and with some period of time, she has already recognized all of them. So once she was talking to this bunch of children, these unfortunate children, and she asked, "Why aren't you wearing chappals?" I asked one. So one of the child was asked this question, that why are you not wearing chappal? That child said, "My mother did not bring them down from the shelf." Look, he just gave an excuse. He didn't have the chappal, he didn't have the shoes. But the thing is that they are left with nothing but excuses. Even if she did, he will throw them out. Adds another child actually answer on his behalf, on the behalf of that child. He says even if his mother would give him the chappal, this child would not wear it. He would throw them, because he is used to not wearing the shoes. Who is wearing shoes that do not match? Another child was wearing, who actually gave the answer. He was wearing the shoes, but those shoes they do not match. When I comment on it, when I made a comment that why you are wearing the shoes that don't match, he shuffled his feet and says nothing. He didn't say nothing. Okay, and he said that I want shoes. A third boy said, "I want shoes." First child, okay, he was not wearing chappal. Second child who gave an answer, he was wearing shoes that did not match. And third child, he said, "I want shoes," who has never owned a pair of shoes all his life. Traveling across the country, now the author expresses her own idea. Traveling across the country, I have seen children walking barefoot. So many children across India, they remain shoeless. They don't have proper footwear to wear. In cities, on village road, it is not lack of money, but a tradition to stay barefoot is one explanation. So when they are asked that you are not wearing shoes, they give the explanation that it is our tradition. How can be it a tradition not to wear chappal? But as their financial condition doesn't allow them to wear it, so this is an easiest explanation they give, or an excuse they give. I wonder if this is only an excuse to explain away a perpetual state of poverty, as they are living in the constant, unending state of poverty that will never come to an end. So this is nothing but an excuse. They are giving a pretext that they don't have shoes. But do you think that really in India, how many children have to live such life of perpetual poverty? It never comes to an end. Now in the next paragraph, the narrator and the author, Anisan, talks about a story. I remember a story a man from Udupi, it is a place in Karnataka, once told me. As a young boy, he would go to school past an old temple where his father was a priest. So she is telling us a story about a young boy. He goes to the temple where his father was a priest. He would stop briefly at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. This child would go to the temple every day and pray to God, oh God, please give me the pair of shoes. And what happened after 30 years? The author says, after 30 years, later I visited his town. So when she went to that particular town where this child belongs to, and the temple which was now drowned in an air of desolation. So this temple is now submerged in destruction. In the backyard, so that temple is now in a dilapidated condition. In the backyard where lived the new priest, there were red and white plastic chairs. A young boy dressed in grey uniform wearing socks and shoes arrived panting and threw his school bag on a folding bed. So author says that now this place is occupied by a new priest, and the child of this new priest has all the amenities like grey uniform, wearing socks and shoes, and he also has nice footwear. Looking at the boy, I remembered the prayer another boy had made to the goddess when he had finally got a pair of shoes. So another child has actually made that prayer 30 years ago, and now a child of this priest really is getting all the facilities. He's getting a pair of shoes. So let me never lose them. The goddess had granted his prayer, and young boys like the son of the priest now wore shoes. Means, but look, that wish was granted by the God after 30 years in the form of this child of a new priest got his shoes. But what about other children in India? But many other like the rag pickers in my neighborhood remain shoeless. It means there's so many children in India that they don't have even proper clothes, they don't have basic amenities, they don't have even proper house to live. Many of them live their life on the road. My acquaintance, now the next paragraph, the author talks about Simapuri. Now what is Simapuri? Simapuri is actually an area where the squatter means the people who came in India and live their life illegal. They are illegal settlers in India. Okay, so the Simapuri is actually a hub of this kind of people, refugees, and this place is at the periphery of Delhi. So such 20,000 children work here. So my acquaintance with the barefoot rag pickers leads me to Simapuri, a place on the periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it. Look, it is near Delhi, but it is miles away from it. It is the capital of India, but still so many unfortunate, downtrodden children are living their life. And government is really very indifferent towards them. Metaphorically, we can say, those who live here are squatter. The people who are living here are squatters. Squatter means the people who live or settle down illegally are called squatter, who came from Bangladesh back in 1971, and Sahib family is among them. Sahib's family is also one of them. Simapuri was then a wilderness. In 1971, it was a jungle. It was a wilderness. It is still a jungle. It is still a wilderness, but it is no longer empty. Earlier, it was empty. No people were living there, but now it is occupied, by this unfortunate, downtrodden people like Sahib Alam. Sahib's family is among them. Its structure of mud with roofs of tin and tarpaulin. Look, these are the things really is very pathetic that they don't have even basic amenities, like even they are devoid of sewage, drainage or running water. Like live 10,000 rag pickers. 10,000 rag pickers live in Simapuri. They have lived here more than 30 years without an identity, as government has not given them any identity, without permit, but with ration card that get their names on voters list. Why? Look, ration cards enable them to get voters card, and that enable them to buy grain. So they at least have that identity. They can purchase. They can have some food for them. Food is more important for survival than an identity. For them, having 2 times food is more important than their self identity. If at the end of the day we can feed our families and go to bed without an aching stomach, we would rather live here than in the field that gave us no grain. So, author says that this place is giving them food. So they feel it is better to live here rather than living in Bangladesh, rather than living in that field that was not giving them any food. So, say a group of women, look. So this dialogue was spoken by a woman in tattered saris. Tattered means torn to pieces. Even the woman living in this surrounding, they don't have even proper clothes to wear. And this woman says, a group of women in tattered saris, when I asked them why they left their beautiful land of green fields and rivers. They say wherever they find food, they pitch their tent. They dig in their tent that become their transit home, their temporary home. Children grow up in them, becoming partners in survival. And survival in Simapuri means rag picking. Means whoever lives in Simapuri, that means he has to do the work of nothing else but rag picking. Through the years, it has acquired the proportion of fine art, and garbage to them is gold. Why does the author say it is garbage to them is gold? Because a child like Sahib, sometime he finds 10 rupees note when he's scrounging for gold. Here gold means a precious metal? No. Here gold means, it is wrapped with hope. It is wrapped with surprise. It is wrapped with, that child finds any precious thing out of that garbage. So that is the reason that author has said, for them, this garbage is gold and it is their daily bread, a roof over their head. And even if it is a leaking roof, but for a child, it is even more. It means, although they are living in the pathetic, deplorable condition, for them, think they are very grateful to God, at least they have got this much. Otherwise, the place they used to live, it was even difficult to get food for them. So I sometimes find a rupee, even a 10 rupees note, Sahib says. So this child says sometimes he finds 10 rupees note and he becomes very happy getting that thing. His eyes lighting up, his eyes shining up. When you can find a silver coin, a heap of garbage, you don't stop scrounging. Obviously, for these children, it is wrapped with wonder. And for their elder, rag picking, it is a means of survival. So, when you get something out of that garbage, you don't stop scrounging, you don't stop searching for something. You are getting something out of it. For there is a hope of finding more. It seems that for children, garbage has a meaning different from what it means to their parent. For children, it is wrapped in wonder, and for the elder, it is a means of survival. Now, students, next paragraph. One winter morning, I see Sahib standing by the fence gate of the neighborhood club. So once the author met him at the neighborhood club where the game of tennis was played. Watching two young men dressed in white playing tennis, I like the game, he hums. He making humming sound, he says, is very happy, he content to watch it standing behind the fence. He is not allowed to enter the club, but still is happy looking at the game. I go inside when no one is around. He says that sometimes that gatekeeper allows him to enter the club, okay, and he can use the swing. Sahib too is wearing tennis shoes that look strange over his discolored shirt and short. He was wearing tennis shoes, but they did not match with his clothing. Someone gave them to me. He says he was very happy to find this pair of shoes. He says in the manner of an explanation, the fact that they are discarded shoes of some rich boy. The shoes that he got from somebody, those shoes were discarded by a rich boy, but still he was very happy. The rich boy was not wearing that pair of shoes because there was a hole in that shoe. That rich boy who refused to wear them because of a hole in one of them does not bother him. For one who has walked barefoot, this child who is used to walking barefoot, even a shoe with a hole is a dream come true. For such a child, Sahib Alam, he has got the shoes even with a hole, but for him it is like dream come true. What the game is watching so intently is out of his reach. The game of tennis is being played right now at the club, but this game he would never be played in his life. Next, this morning Sahib is on his way. After 2 or 3 days, when the author meets him on the way, Sahib is not doing the job of a rack picking. Okay, he is employed at tea stall. This morning Sahib is on his way to milk booth. In his hand is a steel canister. It is a kind of container to keep the glass. I now walk in a tea stall down the road, he says, pointing in the distance. He said, I am paid 800 rupees and all my meals. This child says that he is paid 800 rupees and all his meal. Now he has left the job. He is not doing the work of rack picking. Does he like the job? I ask him that, do you really love your job? His face, I see, has lost the carefree look. The steel canister seems heavier than the plastic bag he would carry so lightly over his shoulder. Earlier, he was carrying a plastic bag over his shoulder, but he was doing that work out of his own choice and out of his own freedom. But the steel canister that he keeps right now in his hand is really very heavier because he's not doing this job out of his choice. He's being forced to do this thing. That shows that how many children in India have to do child labor. They are enforced, they are exploited to that extent. They don't have any option in their lives. The steel canister seems heavier than the plastic bag he would carry so lightly over his shoulder. That bag was his. The canister belongs to the man who owns the tea shop. And Sahib, earlier he was free. Earlier, he was owner of his own freedom, but now he is no longer his own master. So we have come to an end of the first story about Sahib Alam. Okay, now in the next lecture, we would discuss about Mukesh, who is working in glass industry in Firozabad. He wants to be a motor mechanic, but will he be able to become a motor mechanic? That we would see in the next session.